Some concerning news on the economic front. South Korea recorded a current account deficit in November for the first time in 3 months. It's because of weaker outbound shipments driven by a decline in exports of chips in particular. Our Shin Ha-young explains.
Amid a continued drop in exports of semiconductors, South Korea's current account was in the red in November for the first time in 3 months. Preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Tuesday shows the country posted a current account deficit of $620 million. That's down by about $7.4 billion from the previous year. The goods balance, which tracks goods imports and exports, came to a deficit of $1.57 billion in November, falling more than $7.6 billion on year after recording a surplus a year earlier. When it comes to exports, the country exported $51.9 billion of goods, an on-year decrease of 14%. This was mainly due to weaker exports of chips and petroleum products. It's the third consecutive month of exports falling from the previous year after the country posted an on-year decrease in September for the first time in 23 months. Imports, on the other hand, saw an on-year rise of 2.7% to almost $58.9 billion with the growing cost of importing raw materials. Meanwhile, the service account, which tracks earnings and spending on overseas trips and transport, saw its deficit widen to $340 million. The accumulated current account from last January to November stands at a surplus of $24.3 billion. The BOK forecast back in November that the country's current account for 2022 would record a surplus of $25 billion. An official from the BOK hinted that the outlook is still valid.
As the trade deficit in December narrowed from the deficit in November, the country's current account for 2022 is expected to not stray far from the outlook.
To meet that outlook, the country would have to see a surplus of at least $600 million to $700 million in December. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.